I've just been involved in a big discussion on Twitter about the use of isolation booths in schools. Some of you may have seen it on the BBC News. There was a report, and it just got me thinking, how on earth are we doing this in 2018? Now, several years ago, I used to have a role where I would work with families in need. So I would go into their homes. Sometimes they were families on the child protection register, with child protection plans, or they were struggling and concerns whether it might get to that level. So my role would be to go in, support the parents, and just, make sure there were better outcomes for the children, of course. And if I had gone into a home, and they had shown me a room or a space that was completely bare, a chair where a child had to sit facing the wall, and they had to be there for a whole day, and maybe their toilet breaks were either limited or they weren't allowed within certain times, then that would be a safeguarding issue, because clearly that would be abusive. So what is happening in our schools? And the isolation booths are in primary schools as well as secondary schools. When I've been around the country speaking and training, many people have either told me in front of the whole audience or come to me later and told me that this is a major concern for them, either as a parent of a child who's in a school where they're using them, or a professional who's working in schools where they're being used. So what is happening? Well, partly I think we're in a time of such scarcity that scarcity breeds fear. So what do I mean by scarcity? Well, in our schools, as we know, budgets have been slashed beyond anything that's reasonable or rational. So we have our leaders who are in a state of fear, trying to manage budgets, trying to deliver results, trying to also address the real crisis in children's mental health. So when you have scarcity, you have fear. Then throughout the teaching staff and the support staff and anyone who's involved in school life, the same thing. You have a scarcity mindset. There are less of them, there are less resources. I watched the BBC programme School the other night, and there the teachers were talking about, if I don't hit my targets, then it's possible that my pay will not be increased. I won't get a pay rise because it will be assessed on my targets. They also showed where teachers were, because of the cuts, some of them would eventually be £6,000 down in their salary, but expected to do the same job, if not more. So again, we have a real lived experience of scarcity and fear for the adults who are there to help the children. So therefore, I don't think it's surprising that we've got to this place of using something that I don't even think we would find in our prisons, making a child sit all day in a plain booth staring at a wall. Or one young person told me about how they had a window in their booth, which we would think would make it better, but actually her experience was it was worse because she could see everyone out at break times having a great time. But maybe for her mental health it was slightly better, I would say it was, to see the outside. So what are we going to do? We'll need to really think about how we're going to support our teaching staff with this, and how we need to be coming at it from a point of view of what do they need, what's going on for everyone, that, big lorry going by, that we would have got to this state in our schools. So on the one hand, we have a mental health crisis in our children, higher anxiety than any other time in our history. And on the other hand, we're using practices that are emotionally painful and distressing for the children, who part of the reason they've ended up in the booths is because with anxiety and trauma, it's very, very hard to be still and to be settled. So some of the behaviours that have meant they've ended up there come from a place of needing to move in some way, make a sound, do something that comes from this state of overwhelm. So let's get our thinking heads on. What can we do to support schools, and how can we very clearly be saying across social media that this is not okay?